So a lot of you know that I have been studying taxes. It's something I've always wanted to study, and it's just a good thing to know because we live in a country, most of us live in countries that you have to pay taxes. So why not get to know it? Now, a lot of other countries that are outside of America, the code is not as complicated, right? Most people probably don't have to study it. And some countries, the government just tells you how much you owe. You can't even really audit them. But in America, land of freedom, you are basically punished if you don't know. I mean, that's the truth. It's the unfortunate thing. But if you don't take time to learn, you will either have to make so much money you pay someone else to do it, or if you don't have that money, then you don't know things and you probably will miss things. That's just the truth. In the course of my studies, what I've been noticing is that I don't know if this is just the IRS or it's just in general something that happens in government a lot, but their definition of certain things that people colloquially, as in day-to-day, use is very different. Very, very different. And I want to show you guys two of them, partly just out of fascination, but also why would you define things this way? Why would you define things so differently than how the average person uses it if he or she didn't know about tax law or didn't know about accounting? So before I begin, I just want to make sure everyone knows this is just me applying some of my studies to life. This is not accounting or tax or legal advice. Remember that, okay? Just have fun with me. I promise you, this is very enlightening if you haven't studied this stuff before. So let's go. The first term is head of household. I'm sure a lot of you use it to mean, yeah, I pay all the bills. I'm the head of the house, right? And there's nothing wrong with that use, but the IRS defines it very, very differently. So let's look at how the IRS definition of head of household is very, very different from the usual common day-to-day. This is a good one to read for anyone that's interested in taxes. Now, the 2024 edition has probably come out, so make sure to go check that one out. Go search it up on the IRS website. Now, for those of you who don't know where this applies, you will have to look at what's called the 1040. If you look at the 1040 right here, again, the 2024 edition has probably come out, okay? So make sure to go find the 2024. Relates to here, filing status. Now look, there's single, and look at here, head of household. And then there's married filing jointly, and then there's married filing separately, and then there's qualified surviving spouse. This used to be called widower. So you might ask, what does this mean? How does this differ from all this? Well, I will show you. Let's look at publication 17. There's actually an even better definition in the instructions for 1040, but we'll look at this first, okay? You are unmarried or considered unmarried on the last day of the year. So that's the first thing. And if you want to look at what considered unmarried means, considered unmarried means to qualify for head of household, you must be either unmarried or considered unmarried on the last day of the year. You are considered unmarried on the last day of the tax year if you meet all of the following tests. You file a separate return. You paid more than half the cost of keeping up your home for the tax year. Your spouse didn't live in your home during the last 6 months of the tax year. So far, filing a separate return, you, the person claiming head of household, also has to pay more than half of the cost of keeping up a home. Now, keeping up a home is also defined by the IRS, but we won't get into that. This is an important thing. Your home was the main home of your child, stepchild, or foster child for more than half of the year. So, home of qualifying person, you need what's called a qualifying person. And then you must be able to claim the child as a dependent. And we can look at the instructions for 1040. They just explain it differently. Sometimes it makes sense to look at both just in case one is confusing. You are considered unmarried. Again, this goes back to unmarried for the head of household if you were legally separated. You are married but live apart from your spouse for the last 6 months of the tax year. You are married and your spouse was a non-resident alien at any time during the year, and the election to treat the alien spouse as a resident alien is not made, or you paid over half the cost of keeping up a home that was the main home for all of the tax year of your parent, whom you can claim as a dependent, except under a multiple support agreement, or paid over half the cost of keeping up a home in which you lived in which one of the following also lived for more than half of the year. Any person whom you can claim as a dependent but don't include, so then there's all these things you don't include. Don't worry if you can't follow along, because I can guarantee you a lot of people can't follow along. I have a friend, I'm not going to say his name, but he loves to deliver things with confidence. One time he said he's head of household. Taking my course, I was trying to match the criteria with him. He's married and he has a kid. So I'm like, but he seems to have a good relationship with his wife. But One of the things is if your spouse didn't live with you for the last 6 months of the tax year. So I just out of curiosity, I'm taking a course. I'm going to ask you a question if you don't mind. Claiming head of household, like why? And very quickly I realized he just didn't understand what I was asking because he used the term colloquially, even though he claimed on a tax form he put head of household. So I'm only telling you this story because people use this term wrong all the time. If you looked at all those definitions I just showed you, now you know why, right? But this is why this field of helping people with taxes exists, because why? I just don't know why. You guys tell me why you think why. The IRS has such a complex definition for a term that everyone uses differently in day-to-day life. Again, let me summarize this again. You are either unmarried or considered unmarried on the last day of the tax year, and you have to have paid 50% of the cost of maintaining a home, and then you have to have a qualifying person. So for example, a lot of single parents are head of household. You have to look at all of them on a case-by-case basis, but you can probably tell just listening to what I just said that a lot of single parents are head of household. My friend who's happily married, wife stays at home, lives with him all year, right? They have a kid. He's not head of household, even though from his objective non-tax standpoint, he is, right? He supports the family. So yes, he is head of household. When you tell me, you told the IRS that you did head of household, either you misunderstood the tax form or you did it wrong. I think he misunderstood the tax form. He wouldn't make a mistake like that. I don't know. We're just getting started. I'll start the next one with a question. How many of you consider yourselves real estate professionals? So this is about the term real estate professional. I've used the term colloquially, right? You have used the term colloquially. I'm sure you know someone who either uses the term or even claims themselves as a real estate professional. It turns out the IRS actually has an official definition. Again, this is just for tax purposes, especially when it comes to passive income. Now, passive income is another term that gets used differently than what the IRS considers the actual definition. So again, I can't get into that because that's not as fun. But just so you know, everyone who uses passive income usually isn't talking about what actually the IRS considers passive income. But anyways, let's talk about real estate professional. What is a real estate professional when it comes to passive income versus income that isn't passive? So a real estate professional, according to the IRS, now this is publication 925. This is a good one to read too. If you have rental property, generally rental activities or passive activities, even if you materially participated in them, I won't define this. This just means you put a lot of work. In fact, it's almost like your job. However, if you qualified as a real estate professional, rental real estate activities in which you materially participated aren't passive activities. I won't bore you with this stuff. Let's look at the qualifications for what it means according to the IRS to be a real estate professional. You qualified as a real estate professional for the year if you met both of the following requirements. More than half of the business services you performed in all trades or businesses during the tax year were performed in real property trades or businesses in which you materially participated. You performed more than 750 hours of services during the tax year in real property trades or businesses in which you materially participated. And here's another thing. Don't count personal services you performed as an employee in real estate trades or businesses unless you are a 5% owner of your employer. You are a 5% owner if you owned or are considered to have owned more than 5% of your employer's outstanding stock, outstanding voting stock, or capital or interest. So there's more definitions. For example, what is real property trades? What is real property development, et cetera, et cetera. So think about it. A person that works for a company that does brokerages or does mortgages, et cetera, they call themselves real estate professionals. Objectively, they are. But for the sake of this tax form, for the sake of passive income, for the sake of IRS labels, they're not really a real estate professional. Now, those of you who run your own business know that you usually file a Schedule C. Now, some people have S-Corps and stuff like that. We're not getting into that. But a person who's just an individual who runs their own business usually files this. So if we look at classifications, because for those of you who've ever done this, and don't worry if you haven't done this, there's a code and you have to describe your profession. So what if you're in the real estate profession, right? So then we can go to the instructions for Schedule C, which, see, there's a real estate rental and leasing. You find the classification for you, right? Notice there's leasers of real estate, offices of real estate agents and brokers, offices of real estate appraisers, real estate property managers, other activities related to real estate. But you notice very quickly, there's no designation even here that says real estate professional, because again, the real estate professional uses a special designation on a special form. They use Schedule E. Don't worry about it if this video seemed too deep, okay? I've been at this for a few months, so obviously to me, this is starting to get a little bit more understandable, but there's a reason why there's this industry that helps people with this, because the tax code is so complicated. And I just gave you 2 examples. I guess I gave you 2.5 because I sort of slightly hinted at passive income, but we didn't really look into that. I hope you guys see that for some reason, there's a big disconnect between the definitions that we use in day-to-day conversation and the definitions that are applied to us in tax terms. Now, I haven't looked at other types of laws, so I don't know what other definition mismatches between day-to-day and official use there are. But I'm sure if you guys want to show me in the comments, please do so. And we can have a lot of fun in the comments about this. Let's just briefly think about this too. I hope this provokes you into thinking, if you are in a country that has this type of mismatch between official use and day-to-day use, whose responsibility is it to learn? Should the officials, should the people in the government cater towards the people and change the definitions to fit more what people use? Or should the people kind of do what I'm trying to do as a responsible civic person to learn the things that we should have been taught in school, but we never were? I don't know if there will be an answer, but I sure want to get some discussion going in the comment sections. So let me know. Also, if there's any other tax topics you want me to cover, again, just for academic fun, applying what I've been learning, let me know too. Any requests, throw it my way. Okay, guys, thank you so much.